into another edition of Bama and Bourbon with Aaron Suttles from Alabama. I'm Lance Taylor from the Next Round. We talk bourbon, we talk Alabama football. After a bye week, we have a showdown in the Bayou. Tiger Stadium, Alabama, LSU, both with 2 losses. More than likely, this is an elimination game. Could be a play-in game when you look at Alabama's remaining schedule. Mercer, Oklahoma, Auburn, it seems like they will win out. They'll be double-digit favorites probably in all of those games. So, massive game coming up. And I think everybody's going to look to Jalen Milroe, you know.
Yeah, it's a season-defining game, and a lot's going to be on Milroe because let's face it, Alabama has been a different team on the road than they've been at home. They played great at Wisconsin, and obviously Vandy's become Vandy this season, and they struggled a little bit on the road at Tennessee. And Tennessee's very similar in environment in terms of noise to what they're going to face in Baton Rouge, although Baton Rouge will be bourbon-fueled down there on the Bayou, and who knows what the weather is going to be.
Yeah, it looks a little bit better. So, you know, with this hurricane that's going to be hitting the coast, they said Saturday morning, but they've kind of changed up a little bit on what the forecast is. Because I was looking at New Orleans, and there's not supposed to be any rain this weekend, so we'll see what happens there. But Jalen is coming off his 3 lowest, at least, quarterback rating games.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And he hasn't looked the same that he looked in September.
Yeah, and look, I think a lot of stuff goes into it. I think when you watch a game on television like we do, and we don't know what play was called, I don't think the Alabama receivers, and we've talked about it, they've not been uber consistent. I think honestly, Jeremy Bernard has probably been their most consistent guy.
I would agree, yep.
And then obviously the big play potential of Ryan Williams, but he's still just a freshman. Can't even vote. You know, today's election, can't even vote. And then, you know, we've talked about Kendrick Law, and there's a reason they're trying to find creative ways to get him involved, but there's a reason that, you know, we don't see more of him, and I don't know if that's route running or where he falls in the pecking order. We saw Kobe Prentice get a shot versus Missouri, and he had a couple of drops. So I think some of it's on Jalen, and I think Jalen would own that, and I think some of it's on the receivers, and Jalen would never throw his teammates under the bus. So I think a lot of it goes into it, but you know, I think they're close on a lot of stuff. I think they're going to have to get one in the offseason more depth at wide receiver. And I don't know if that's through the portal and wide receiver. I know they got a big 5-star committed from Mississippi, but he'll be a freshman. So I think receiver, the depth and the consistency of the receiver has been an issue this year.
I'll tell you who they could use right now is Ja'Cory Brooks, who's playing really well at Louisville.
So I got a talk, you might actually know him. He's a talk show host, and Mark Ennis out of Louisville. And he hits me up from time to time, and every time Ja'Cory Brooks has a big game, he's like, "Man, this kid can play." I'm not, and I always tell him, his ability to play was never an issue. It was the consistency.
Well, I mean, his biggest grab was it his second grab ever in the Iron Bowl?
Iron Bowl.
Yeah. By the way, we're drinking Redemption Bourbon. I've never heard of it. The label almost, well, that's going to sound like a shot. I don't want to say it. It almost looks like somebody printed it and stuck it on here a little bit, doesn't it?
It's a leathery, like it's meant to look like leather. Is that what it's
supposed to look like?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will say, it's if you're not a big fan of the burn, this is a mellow taste.
Now,
for you.
Chan, who from King Package Beverage Place, who brought the bottles up today, told me this is a very smooth, low-powered bourbon at 88 proof that you can sip.
But so it's not burning at all. So if you need something, you're trying to get into bourbon, or you're trying to get your wife or girlfriend into bourbon, this might be the one.
Yeah, there is really no burn. Dead on there. Bama and Bourbon always brought to you by our friends. Title sponsor, MyBookie.ag. Use that code next round, double your initial deposit. That's right, MyBookie will double your initial deposit when you use the code next round. Winning season in full effect. You can do it right there in MyBookie.ag. Code word next round. So this for LSU, already a loss to USC. I think there's more pressure on Brian Kelly. Fair?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, over Caleb DeBoer?
Yeah,
no
because,
question.
You know, when you go to a 12-team playoff, Alabama and LSU should be in every year. Now, one of them, obviously the loser of this game more than likely won't be in, but Brian Kelly in year 3.
And look, he's had some losses. Remember, he was demonstrative at the podium after the loss to USC at the start of the season. Pounds his fist. And look, and this game is at home. And he's in year 3?
3, yeah.
So there are more expectations on Brian Kelly, and he's got a quarterback that didn't play his best game at A&M, but I think can do some really good things. They got the offense. Defense has been an issue with them. They've been better this year than they were last year.
Yeah, if you take away his second half, he's been really good. Now, he's second in interceptions right now in the conference, and a lot of that was second half, where in 19 attempts he threw 3 picks. Either one of these guys turns it over on Saturday night, their team's going to lose.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Alabama's got to affect him. You got to move. You cannot let him get comfortable in the pocket, and that's the key to the drill to me. And then you just got to be efficient. Look, I went back and watched some games at Alabama, and I know you mentioned the QBR for Jalen being successively lower or the 3 worst of the season, but I mean they're watching some plays. They're not far off, and they had some shots. I mean, we talked about the shot to Kobe Prentice last week against Missouri. It was almost there, and. There's one with Henderson that actually they hit, but if you watch it, if he flips his hips, that's a touchdown. He goes down at the 2 or 3. So they're real close on it coming together. And I still don't know. I don't know. Have they put together a solid game yet?
Alabama 4 quarters?
Yeah,
no,
not yet.
I don't think so.
And I still think they're waiting on that. And I still think that we forget it's Caleb Moore's first season. It's his staff's first season with these players.
Well, I think that's important. I think before the season, there were a lot of people that said 9-3. There were a lot of people that said 10-2. I think 10-2 getting to a college football playoff.
Success.
Yeah, it was like an A+ season for Caleb Moore, even if he's to lose that first playoff game. Yeah. So they're right there on pace.
With, by the way, the number 1 recruiting class committed right now.
Nobody. The biggest problem has been nobody saw Vanderbilt coming.
And if they had played them later in the year and lost, that loss hits differently. It's still a bad loss to Alabama fans because losing to Vanderbilt is never acceptable.
Guess what? I don't think they lose that game later. I could be wrong. Vanderbilt's that tough of an out. They're sitting at 6-3. They're ranked again. But they wouldn't have snuck up on anybody. It seemed that I remember us doing Bama and Bourbon. Hey, this is going to be an easy, nice trip for Alabama fans to go up to Nashville, catch a game.
And then bad luck too on that tip ball that gets bounced up in the air and they pick 6, and you still only lose by 3?
Yeah,
whatever it was. So, look, I think you're right. 10-2 with this season, given everything they lost after Nick Saban retired, holding the class together. As we talked about, the receiving core is not as consistent as hopefully you'd like it to be, and maybe it will be in the future. And with an entirely new defense coming in, it's great that you got Malachi Moore back. It's great that you got Deontay Lawson back and all those guys. But it's a new system, so they're learning on the fly too. And we have seen the defense has played better of late. Now, that's against Missouri's backup quarterback for context, but you still got to stop teams from scoring. We've talked about how tough it is, regardless of who you're playing, stopping teams in today's college football. So defense is coming into form. If offense can play one of their better games, which they're capable of doing, this is a very winnable game.
So, Redemption Bourbon. Again, 88 proof. I'm just going to read from the tasting notes here. Truly easy drinking whiskey, distinguished by its subtle rye-forward flavor. Their bourbon has a rye content of 21%, giving it a light. It is a light in color, definitely, but distinct hint of spice. Enjoy it on the rocks or mixed into your favorite bourbon cocktail. They say it's got a little caramel.
I can taste that.
Touch of spice and hints of overripe bananas.
So
I'm not a big overripe banana guy, are you?
Unless it's going to banana bread, which I try to stay away from these days. But I think with this, even if you're not into bourbon, you don't need it on the rocks.
I wasn't blown away by the bottle, and you did point out that it is a leathery label there.
Pigskin, maybe.
I didn't have an expectation, and this actually is...
Yeah, not bad.
They have all day... what do they call IPAs, like all session, where the easy drinking the 4%. Yeah. This is my all-day bourbon. Yeah. Like typically I used to, and I've told this story before, 11 o'clock I would drink cold beer, and then when I'd hear dun 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 the CBS, I'd be like, it's time to go to bourbon. Yeah. I don't go to bourbon until the sun sets now, but I think Redemption might be my daytime bourbon.
I forget who I was talking to the other day, and they were bringing up Bama and Bourbon, and they're like, they're big fans of the show. They're like, they remembered last year when you did, or earlier this year, maybe it was in the spring when you did a no drink. When was that?
I did February, yeah. Dry February.
Like, it was just Aaron sitting there drinking by himself.
Yeah, damn, I forgot about that. It was a dry February for me. I don't know if I'm going to do one of those this year. We'll see.
Life too short.
Bama and Bourbon brought to you by the Beverage Place, located next to the PGA Superstore, Highway 280, Pink Package, located across from Target, next to Arby's on Highway 280, one-stop shop, liquor, beer, seltzers, wine, sodas, mixers, cigars, icing, fresh lemons, and limes. They open early, close late. Get in, see Chan, JJ, fine folks there. They are bringing us our Redemption Bourbon today. So, do you think, like if I set, and I haven't seen any player props yet, if I set the rushing yards at Jalen Monroe at 61.5?
I think it's definitely got to be more than 50. Because I think in this game, in that environment, first downs are key. You don't have to score every drive, but you're going to have to move the chains. One, to give your defense a break against that explosive LSU passing game. And two, to flip field position. So any way you can get a first down. I don't think this is a vanity game where you stay in the pocket and you need to put up 350 yards passing. You need to move the chains whenever you can. And some of that's going to be by play design and Nick Sheridan and Caleb DeWar helping Jalen with some design runs. And some of it's going to be on Jalen when plays break down. What's his biggest strength? It's his athleticism.
Yeah,
keeping plays alive to throw the ball and also to run when there are voids. And
there's nothing you can do about those 7-8 yard scampers. It's like that. It's immediate.
And it kills you if you're the defense. It kills because you could play perfect defense and still, instead of 2nd and 10, it's 2nd and 3.
So Alabama's defense has improved.
Yeah,
and
no
I
doubt.
think it's coming off their best performance, full 4 quarters against Missouri where they pitched shutout. Now you're going against one of the best offensive lines in all of football, and they protect Nussmeier. I mean, what do you I mean, defense, do you think you get a carryover and domination in this game?
I think it's hard to dominate anyone in today's college football. And look, I mean, to be fair to Kane Womack and this defense, they're pretty thin on the defensive back. They've got some injuries there, and they're rested up, and hopefully those guys are trying to get healthy. But they're dealing with some injuries back there. Obviously, Keon Sabb is the main one, but there's some inexperience. If you ask the coach staff, and they've said it, the depth is not where they would like it to be, especially in their first season and this late in the season going up against an LSU pass defense. I think the pass rush is going to have to bring it. And we've seen moments where LT Overton has been dominant. I think Tim Keenan has been great this season. I think Tim Smith has been great this season, doing the hidden stuff that you don't see that free things up for their teammates. And I think we talked about Q Robinson, guys on the edge, him and Quay Russaw. They got to create some disruption to really hopefully create some turnovers. What are they? They've turned people over 10 times in the last 3 games?
Yeah. So LSU and Alabama come into this game both coming off a bye, so even footing there, it seemed like a really needed bye for Alabama. And the difference is LSU's coming off a loss, Bama's coming off that win, so there is a little bit of momentum there. But look, you're close to these guys, you walk around the building, I know you can't get into everything, but just how important was the break, and do you think this is a re-energized bunch coming out, knowing exactly what's in front of them?
Well, I think little things matter. I mean, someone once told me that there are no little things. That we think of little things, but little things are big things too, if you take them in totality. So
I've heard it the other way around, like little things aren't that important.
Yeah.
But I think in the game of football they are.
I think, something. Little things
in
can
life,
be big.
Getting in a traffic jam, not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things.
But I think we saw it in the game versus Missouri, and it was a small thing in the grand scheme of things. But taking the timeout, putting the starters back in, I think that gave that team a jolt of energy. And so many times this season, that's what they've needed. I mean,
well, it seemed like a moment of unity too.
Yeah, they needed those moments of cohesion, of confidence, because there have been moments when we've all experienced moments in your personal life where you feel confident, you feel great, the world is yours, and there are other moments where you're not feeling great, and you're not confident, and it feels like the weight of the world is on you. So when you're feeling confident, man, it can change everything. And I think that's sort of where Alabama enters this week, because I'm telling you, Caleb DeBoer is a positive human being. And that's good. I mean, it's good to have someone like that. You don't want someone to lie to you and be positive. But when you're being constructive while being positive, that's a positive thing. And I do think the leadership, I've seen Tim Smith be a good leader. I've seen Tyler Booker be a good leader. So you're getting that sort of being held accountable from a team position. But the coach giving you constructive pointers to up your game while also being positive so you're not constantly demeaning someone, I think that's really sort of reached a point where they feel like they're ready to take off. I think they're confident heading into this game.
I agree with what you said about not playing a full 4 quarters. Now, I think there's a lot of teams out there like Georgia. We haven't seen them play a full 4.
Yeah.
You know, we saw them play a great half against Clemson. We saw them play a great half against Texas. There's a lot of teams out there. Oregon, the last couple of games, maybe they've showed us a full 4, but, you know, it's against Illinois and Michigan. I don't know how good the competition is, but I do think if Alabama, and really, I mean, not that I'm putting pressure on Milroe, but if Milroe plays his A game, I don't think the offense is really stoppable.
Well, I know it seems like it was forever ago, but remember the first 30 minutes versus Georgia. And just remember what national pundits were saying about Alabama. This team was unbeatable.
Unbeatable. He won the Heisman. He was going to be the number 1 overall draft pick.
That's what Alabama was capable of, and we haven't seen that for 60 minutes. And I think if you ask Coach DeBoer, he hasn't told me this, but he would probably be telling you, we're waiting. We've been waiting for a full 60-minute game. I think he thinks it's possible. I think he sees flashes of it. And I think for whatever reason, there's something that happens in all these games that sort of stop the momentum, or you don't start fast, or whatever. But if Alabama puts it together for 60 minutes, and I'm not saying this because I'm with the Alabama, I truly believe this. One, because of the state of college football, as you just mentioned. I don't think there's a truly, truly unbeatable team out there. Alabama can beat any team in the country. There's no doubt they could beat Oregon. I mean, they could beat anyone if they play that way.
Yeah, look, and I think you've got 2 of arguably the top 5 coaches going head-to-head, and Brian Kelly and Kalen DeBoer. And again, you know, somebody asked me this earlier today. Who's a better coach in this matchup? I mean, it's really tough. I'm going to lean DeBoer. It's more of an abbreviated sample size. Kelly's got, you know, a lot more years out there. Both are tremendous coaches. And it's just unfortunate, like, Kelly takes us over and people are like, damn, you had a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. We've got nothing to show for it.
But what was, I get that, but what was Jaden Daniels before he went to LSU? Remember his teammates laughing when at his locker when he left?
Well,
and the stuff he left behind? And I'm taking nothing away from Jaden Daniels.
And I remember so I thought his true freshman year under Herm Edwards at Arizona State was pretty good.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, he's got potential.
But it wasn't what it is now.
No, and then he took steps backwards in his sophomore year. And when he transferred, I never thought he would start at LSU.
And now he's probably Rookie of the Year.
Yeah,
in
and
the NFL.
If he was playing on this team, and I said this about USC, like USC's 4-5, they would be 9-0 with Caleb Williams. And I think Jaden Daniels, if he's LSU's quarterback, they're undefeated right now.
So, I mean, people want to. I get that it's easy to pile on Brian Kelly, and he makes it easy sometimes, but his demeanor and the stuff he says sometimes is easy to pick fun at. But he's a pretty good, as you mentioned, pretty good football coach, and you know, this is not an easy game for either of these teams. I mean, look, Alabama they own LSU and LSU.
Yeah, and this is going to sound crazy. I think. And look, I want to see a full 4 quarters. I want to see what Alabama can look like. But I believe Jalen Milroe could play an average game in Baton Rouge and they could still win the game. I just follow it. Yeah, because I go back, the only game I've been to all year was up in Knoxville and Neyland. And Jalen played a bad game. And they had every opportunity to win that game. They were the better team, I thought. Yeah. And if he just would have been somewhat average and just would have completed 1 or 2 of those passes, if he would have used his legs to get 1 more of those first downs, I think they probably win the game. Not to put everything on him. I'm just saying I think this Alabama team is good enough around him where he can play an average game and they still can win this game on the road.
I completely agree. And look, sometimes we don't know what, you know, I've been overly critical on the run game, but sometimes you don't know what a player's going through in terms of how healthy they are, what they actually have to do Monday through Friday to get ready for Saturday. But I do think this running game is capable. We saw flashes of it versus Missouri. With that offensive line, they are capable of running the football. And I think that's a quarterback's best friend, man. I mean, you were able to play action to make the defense respect it.
I don't know how well LSU can run it. And
Alabama's been pretty good against the run.
Yeah, look, and Lacey and Anderson are really good receivers, especially Lacey. They've got a really good tight end in Mason Taylor. It's going to be a fun game. Before we get out of here, a couple of things. Bama and Bourbon always brought to you by our friends, our title sponsor, mybookie.ag. Again, put in that code word next round, and you're going to get the double your initial deposit right there off the bat. Football season in full effect, so is winning season from the NFL, college hoops. They've got everything up and available. Even as we record this, the presidential election, you can wager on that right there at mybookie.ag. Right? Make sure you use that code next round. Also, Bama and Bourbon brought to you by our friends at the Beverage Place, Pink Package. Again, they open early, they close late. They've got everything from liquor, beer, seltzers, wine, sodas, mixers, cigars, ice, even fresh lemons and limes. Stop in, see Chan and JJ there.
What about that Alabama basketball team?
The Alabama basketball team's really good. 50 in the first half, 60 in the second half. Series only played 25 minutes. They only attempted 18 threes.
They only made 8 threes and scored 110 points.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was possible in college basketball.
And
I'm telling you,
7 guys in double figures.
You know me, I am hesitant to put pressure on freshmen. LeBaron Philon is one and done good. He had 9 assists his first collegiate basketball. Now he had 4 turnovers.
But still, that's pretty crazy.
They are loaded, and I'm telling you, whatever style you want to play, you want to go big on big. Well, that freshman they got, Aiden Sherrill, led the team in rebounds, won the hard hat, his first ever.
He's a beast.
He played 19 minutes, had 13 points and 8 rebounds.
I would say the only guy that can't get injured is Mark Sears. Because Mark Sears.
He had 20, and at one point I'm like, Mark hadn't really done much at this point, and I look up, he's got 20 points.
Yeah, I mean, you and I talked about this before off camera. Like, I think Nate's biggest challenge is finding out how to balance those minutes.
And by the way, Chris Youngblood was a projected starter, is not even back yet. And Grant's not fully healthy.
Yeah, Grant didn't. What did he play? Like 11 minutes or something?
They are loaded. The biggest problem Nate's got is figuring out a rotation.
Yeah,
because they are loaded.
And he'll figure that out. Again, depth, everything. Alabama basketball going in a great direction. Alabama football, they get the win here on Saturday. Should be in the college football playoff. College football rankings roll out tonight. It's Bama and Bourbon. I think they're in the top 12.
I do too.
Yeah, I think the one loss that has affected them is actually Texas's best win of the year in Vanderbilt.
Yeah, it's looking better and better.
Yeah, it is. Bama and Bourbon, yay Alabama. How do you get involved in the collective? Very important before we get out of here.
I mean, look, we're having internal discussions about, people think about NIL in current players. You need to look at NIL in terms of an investment in the future. You guys remember how pivotal that 2008 recruiting class was to Nick Saban?
Oh.
That could be this class for Kalen DeBoer. And I'm not over-exaggerating. I'm not comparing it apples to that class, but in terms of perception and what it meant and symbolism and all that and momentum, keeping this 2025 class together is of most importance to that coaching staff, to Kalen DeBoer, in the way that you can support yay-alabama.com. Please subscribe. Every dollar goes to the student athletes, and you're helping secure the future, not right now, but the future of holding on to our current roster and getting the next roster in.
Hey, and if you're watching this, you're either a fan of Bourbon or Bama or both, but covercrimson.com. Join our team, covercrimson.com. They've got in-depth analysis. They've got information. Clint Lamb, Mick Gillespie, those guys, Jay Coker, they do an incredible job. Check out covercrimson.com. This is on Roll Tide Pods. Like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, share it with everybody. We would appreciate that. The Redemption, I am shocked, and we try to be honest here.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell if we're like, we just don't talk about it much. This is actually a very low-key bourbon that
you don't find very many 88 proofs out there.
Yeah. Like, I don't know how many people have this in, like, their drawer at work. You know, there used to be the guy that would hide the vodka because you couldn't smell it. But if you're gonna day drink with bourbon, Redemption,
there you go,
might be the key there. For Aaron Suttles, I'm Lance Taylor. You guys have a wonderful week. Next week, we'll know whether or not Alabama is trending in the right direction or wrong direction right here on Bama and Bourbon.